Hello, this is Shannon with Dogwood Crochet, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet this snowflake ornament. So the materials that you'll need are some medium worsted weight yarn. I'm using Mary Maxim's Starlit Sparkle, and this is the color white gold. And then you'll also need a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook, and then a yarn needle to weave in your ends. And then you'll also want a small little piece of scrap yarn or twine to use as the hanger. So we're going to get started by making a magic circle. And chaining 3. Now we're going to place 12 double crochet into the circle. Okay, so I just placed 12 double crochet into my circle, and now I'm going to close it. So I'm going to pull on this tail until one of these loops starts tightening. Then I'm going to pull on the one that's tightening to close the circle, and then pull on the tail to get rid of that other loop. Then I'm going to slip stitch to join to our chain 3. So that was the end of round 1. We should have 13 stitches. Our chain 3 at the beginning counts as a stitch, and we did 12 double crochet around. So next we are going to chain 4. This chain 4 will count as a stitch for round 2. Then we are going to skip our first stitch, and we're going to work into our second stitch here. And we are going to place 2 double crochet into this second stitch. So we're skipping the first one, place 2 double crochet into our second stitch, and then we are going to chain 2. Then we're going to skip the next stitch and work into the one after that. And we're going to do 2 double crochet into that stitch. Chain 2, and just repeat this all the way around. So we'll skip a stitch and then work 2 double crochet into the next stitch. And then chain 2. So I will come back before we finish this round. I'll show you what we do at the end. All right, so I'm almost to the end of round 2. I have 2 stitches left. This right here is our slip stitch from round 1. So I have 2 stitches left. I'm going to skip this stitch and work 1 double crochet into my last stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch to join to our chain 4 from the beginning of the round. So now we should have 12 stitches at the end of round 2. Our chain 4 counts as a stitch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now for round 3, we're going to chain 1. And then all in this chain space, we're going to place 3 single crochet, chain 2, 3 single crochet, all into this chain space. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to chain 2, and then place another 3 single crochet into this same chain space. So now you can see we have a pointy shape. Then we're going to slip stitch in the stitch between our 2 double crochets here. And then we are going to repeat. We're going to place 3 single crochet, chain 2, 3 single crochet, all into this next chain space. So just did 3 single crochet. Now I'm going to chain 2, and you can shift them over a little bit on the chain space to make more room. Then we're going to do 3 more single crochet, all into that same chain space. All right, so now we have another little point. We're going to slip stitch into this stitch that's in between our 2 double crochets, and then just repeat that. 3 single crochets, chain 2, 3 single crochets into the same chain space. All right, and so we just repeat this all the way around. So I will come back at the end of round 3. All right, so I'm working on my last single crochet of the last chain space. And now I'm going to slip stitch to the first stitch of the round and chain 1. So the end of round 3, we should have 36 stitches. We had 6 chain spaces, and we placed 6 single crochet into each chain space. So now for round 4, what we're going to do is we've chained 1, and then we're just going to slip stitch into each stitch around. And then when I get to this chain space here, the first point, we're going to slip stitch into the chain space, and then we're going to chain 4. And then we're going to slip stitch back into that same chain space. So that creates that little loop. And then we just continue slip stitching into each stitch around. And then I am at my next chain space. I'm going to slip stitch into that chain space and then chain 4. And then slip stitch into that same chain space. And then just continue slip stitching into each stitch around. So we just keep doing this for each star point. When we get to that chain space, or not star point, I guess kind of like these snowflake points, when you get to that point, you'll do the slip stitch, chain 4, slip stitch to make that little loop there. And otherwise we're just slip stitching into each stitch around. So I will come back at the end of round 4. Okay, so I'm coming up on the end here. I just did my slip stitch into the chain space here for my last little loop. And then I just need to slip stitch along this edge, and this is where we started. So I'm just going to finish up these slip stitches. And then we are going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. So we just joined, and then we are going to fasten off. And then I'm going to weave in my end, both ends, and then once I weave them in, I will snip off the tails. So just weave them in along the back somewhere, and then I'll come back once I have woven them in. Okay, so I just wove in my ends, and now all that's left to do is to add our little hanger. So I'm just going to get my piece of twine or scrap yarn, and you can just stick it through one of these loops. You can either feed it through with your fingers, you can use a crochet hook, or you can use a yarn needle. So just feed it through, line up these ends, and wrap them around each other to tie a knot. And now we have our hanger to hang it from our Christmas tree. Otherwise, the only thing left to do, and I do recommend this, would be to block this snowflake. It does hold its shape pretty well right now, but letting it block on a blocking board for a day or two would be helpful, just for it to keep its shape and for these loops to kind of flatten out a little bit. So I do recommend, if you all you need to block it would be either a blocking board or a piece of cardboard, and then some pins, and then you just want to pin it in place into the shape that you want, and then you can spray it with a spray bottle and some lukewarm water and just let it sit for a day or two. I do have a whole YouTube video on how to block granny squares, so the same principles apply to that, and I can add the link to that tutorial in the description box for you. But otherwise, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And the full written pattern for this snowflake is available on my Etsy shop. I will link that in the description box as well. And Merry Christmas!